That is right, this video is going to contain 50 things that you might not know about this year's game. This video is going to take every single thing found in my 5 things series and put them all together into one big episode compilation. So a couple of things to keep in mind before watching the video. Firstly, some of these things were recorded as far back as January, so some may not be quite as relevant or as new as they were originally, and also these episodes were obviously recorded individually so the audio won't completely match up. Still though, if you didn't see the series originally or maybe just didn't see all the episodes, then hopefully you might learn a thing or two that you didn't know before watching today's video. Anyway, let's waste no more time and get into it. This is 50 things that you might not know about WWE 2K16. Something you might not know about 2K16 is that some face paints can actually be edited. Now this is pretty limited and hopefully something 2K can expand on in future games, but as far as 2K16 goes, the Ultimate Warrior and all 3 versions of Sting's face paint can be edited in the creation section of the game. Now this can obviously create some pretty good custom face paints, with Wolfpack Sting being my personal favourite of the bunch. Alternatively, there has been a recent discovery of how you can glitch face paint on a superstars you shouldn't be able to in the game, with, as you can see, some pretty amazing results. Now the method for doing this is pretty secretive and not currently known by many in the community, but you can download these from the community creations, so download them whilst you can. But moving on to the second thing, something some of you guys may have seen in a couple of recent videos on the channel, but still something that some of you guys might not know, and something I wanted to feature in this series is that in 2K16, 2K have added some brand new kendo stick grapples. Now all 3 of these noteworthy grapple animations are in the corner with a front choke, a back choke and a sitting choke. All 3 of these can be done in the corner by grappling your opponent like you normally would, and I'm sure you guys would agree with me, these are some pretty awesome additions to this year's game. Next up, we have the Shawn Michaels corner flop. Now this has been on and off in the series for quite some time now, but I'm sure some of you guys watching this might not be aware about it. Now the corner flop in the game, as far as I'm aware, exclusive to Shawn Michaels, and as we know, this is something HBK was known to do throughout his career, so basically trademark Michaels. This can simply be done by giving Shawn Michaels a strong Irish whip into any of the 4 corners. Our 4th thing in today's episode that you might not know about 2K16 is the Barricade Breaking Spinebuster. Now of course the OMG Barricade Spear has been in the game now for quite a while and pretty much everybody knows about it, but something you might not know is that when a super heavyweight does the move, they have an alternative animation which I would say resembles a bit more of a spinebuster. Now the Barricade Breaking Spinebuster can be done the exact same way as the Barricade Spear, with the likes of the Big Show, Vader and Bad Bigelow using this alternative animation, which I think is pretty cool and a nice touch for the super heavyweights. And the last thing in today's episode of things you might not know about WWE 2K16 is that despite popular belief, entrance breakouts can be done in Universe Mode. Now by default this cannot be done, so that's pretty much why everyone thinks it can't be done at all, but with a little playing around this can actually be made possible. So here we've got the Universe Mode card. Now you can actually break out of any of the matches aside from the first one, but for this video let's just choose the second match as the example. So you want to go into the second match and edit it. In this case, just for superstars, you want to select the superstar you want to control as part of the breakout, make sure entrances for the match are turned on, and then go into the options and save it. So we are now back on the main match screen, and as you can see the match from moments ago is still saved. From here you basically want to go to the first match and start it. Now this match doesn't really matter, we're just using this match to basically tell them the breakouts for the show. Now once this match starts you can either play it or pause it and skip it and go to the next match, which is the match we just saved moments ago. So the second match now about to begin, and here we go, the entrances, and as you can see top left hand corner the entrance breakout is now available in Universe Mode. From here on out, entrance breakouts will work like they normally would in exhibition, so you can either attack from behind, as seen here, which will make the match a no contest, or of course you could attack in the ring if you actually want to play the match. What's also a nice touch is that even though you have literally just controlled a superstar as part of the entrance breakout, when the match actually officially starts, you can again select who you want to be, or even select to watch the match as a fully computer controlled matchup. Now it's a shame Universe Mode breakouts cannot be done by default, but what you might not know, which you now do know, is that using this method, entrance breakouts are indeed doable in the WWE 2K16 Universe Mode. So kicking this off, up first, something you might not know is that when doing a charged finisher, you can actually cancel the finisher mid-taunt, which basically turns this into more of a wake-up taunt like we had in the previous games prior to 2K15. Now this can actually be really handy for a couple of reasons, either if you decide to change move or change finisher before the charged finisher actually connects, or alternatively this can be used as another way to get your opponent back to their feet. In order to cancel the charged finisher, you simply press L1 on the PS4 or equivalent on the Xbox One mid-charged finisher before the finisher actually connects. Second on today's list, we have got the Royal Rumble or Elimination Chamber match in any arena. And now, as some of you guys probably know, in the previous games in this series, when you played a Rumble match or a Chamber match, the game would force you to use either the Rumble arena or the Elimination Chamber arena. Now, whilst this is still the case in 2K16 exhibition matches, it's no longer the case if you play these matches via Universe mode. This is the feature that a lot of us have been requesting for quite a few games now, and the ability to do this, albeit only Universe mode, is now doable in WWE 2K16. Something else you might not be aware of in this year's game is the middle rope vicious knee. Now this is super simple but pretty cool at the same time. If you hang your opponent over the middle rope, go to the apron and attempt a running strike, you can deliver a pretty awesome vicious knee to the face. So as I said, something very simple, something small, but still something I think is pretty cool, so I wanted to include it in today's video. The fourth thing you might not know about 2K16 in today's video is the Shield Triple Powerbomb. Now yeah, I'm sure most of you guys watching will know about the move already, but at the same time you would be surprised by the amount of people that still don't know this move is in the game. Unless you have seen this in videos, this is an OMG moment you potentially may have missed, and it's not actually listed anywhere in the game. Now this move was quietly added to 2K15 last year and still remains in 2K16. This move is exclusive to all 3 former Shield members, but can only be done when Roman Reigns is the legal man with a sword finisher in either a 6-man tag team match or a 3-on-1 handicap match, when your opponent is in the grounded position. The final thing we're going to be seeing in today's video that you might not know is double or stereo OMG moments. Now admittedly, these likely won't be doable unless you're playing with a friend, but when everything falls into place, these, as you can see, create some pretty awesome epic moments. Now these can be done the exact same way as you would normally do a normal OMG moment, but done in tandem with your tag team partner. I'm sure you guys would agree with me, these look pretty awesome, so if you ever wondered if this might be doable, you now know that it is. So if you're playing with a friend, then definitely give this a go. Let's kick this off with a brand new addition to the game via the 1.4 patch, that addition being the ability to edit all alternative attire slots. Now what I mean by this is before the patch, if you wanted to create or edit an alternative attire slot for a superstar with multiple attires, you had to use the default slot. For example, if you wanted to create a retro Triple H, you were forced to use his 98 version as opposed to his 2001 version. Same goes for the Undertaker, where you had to use his 98 version and could not use his 99 ministry version. However, since the latest patch, that has now been changed, as there is now a brand new feature of being able to select what slot you want to edit, which now means all looks and all attires are now usable for creations. So obviously an awesome addition and a great new feature coming via the latest patch, and because it was quietly added via the patch, this is definitely something you might not know about WWE 2K16. Next up, another thing you might not be aware of is some of the brand new barricade moves. Now I have featured these in a couple of previous videos, but if you missed those or maybe new to the channel, then yeah, 2K have added some really cool barricade moves to 2K16. Now a few of these are more generic, which the majority of the roster has, however there is also a few more unique ones which are really cool. Now some of these more unique ones include Randy Orton and his back suplex, Cesaro and his big swing, and even the Big Show has a pretty cool reverse suplex. So again, much like the first thing in today's episode, the brand new barricade moves are a great addition to 2K16. Another thing that is technically new to this year's game is the ability to do stereo announce table finishers. Now obviously announce table finishers themselves aren't new to the game, but due to 2K16 reintroducing arenas with 2 announce tables in them, stereo announce table finishers are now doable. So obviously nothing too secret, just something you may not consider trying out. Similar to last episode's stereo OMG moments, this is fun to do when playing with friends, so next time you are playing with a friend, then definitely consider giving this one a go. Now back in episode number 1, I touched on the fairly new glitch that allowed us to use custom face paint on in-game superstars, but something you might not know is that the same method can be used to do some other pretty cool things in the game. Now that same method can also be used to cover up some tattoos, for example Randy Orton or Brock Lesnar. It can also be used to cover up some short hairstyles, for example Kane or Randy Orton again, and it can even be used to add some facial hair via texturing as well, for example as shown here with John Cena. Now a lot of these cool edits and creations can be found on the community creations, so in case 2K do eventually patch this glitch, you might want to download some of these whilst you can. And moving on to the last thing in today's episode, we have got the OMG dives in the Elimination Chamber matches. Now what I will say is that at times this can be glitchy, but still pretty cool. Technically you can't do the moves as OMG moments, but what you can do is set the exact same moves as the Against the Ropes moves, which basically have the exact same result. Now as far as I'm aware, all different dives work doing this, including the Suicide DDT and even the Suicide Spear. As I say, pretty cool and definitely fun to try out, so the next time you do play a chamber match, then definitely consider giving this one a go. And yeah, the OMG dives in chamber matches concludes today's episode of 5 things you might not know about WWE 2K16. First up, a move or feature that is in 2K16 as well as a few of the previous games in this series, we have got the double Royal Rumble elimination. Now whilst this is not new for 2K16, this is something you still might not know about as it's not actually listed anywhere in the game. The double Royal Rumble elimination can be done when having 2 stored finishers and pressing the finisher prompt when approaching 2 superstars already in the process of elimination. This move must obviously be done in Royal Rumble matches, but can also be done in Battle Royals. Definitely an awesome way to eliminate multiple superstars in these types of matches. Second thing in today's episode, we have got entrance breakout finishers. Now whilst I'm sure plenty of you guys already know how this is done, there is definitely still some that don't, as I still get asked this question pretty regularly, so I thought we'd cover it in this series. Now to do a breakout finisher, it's really simple. All you need to do is go into create a moveset, select the superstar you want to feature, and set the finisher you want to hit as a strong grapple. From there, go ahead and do the entrance breakout like you normally would, and simply hit your chosen move. Pretty cool and as easy as that. The next thing in today's video is something short and sweet, and another thing you might not be aware of, and that is the ability to use DLC songs as part of your custom 2K16 jukebox playlist. Now to some people this might not be interesting, but I think this is pretty cool and definitely something you might not be aware of. And yeah, if you use a custom playlist featuring the in-game soundtrack and in-game themes as part of the jukebox, the DLC superstar music can be added and used as part of your own 2K16 custom playlist. Next up, another thing I think is really cool is the fatigued pin breakup. Now this is something I've only seen more recently, so I'm sure some of you guys might not have seen it either. Basically, if you're in a multi-man match like a dual threat match and are in the crawling state when there is a pin attempt going on, you can actually break the pin up via a really awesome looking fatigued pin breakup. Now I'm sure you guys would agree with me, this looks awesome, definitely a nice touch and adds another element of realism to the multi-man matches in the current games. And finally in today's episode, another thing that is not new to the series by any means, if anything it's the opposite and potentially forgotten about, so that is why you might not know about it, and that is the ability to run up one ladder on the outside of the ring and jump onto another ladder inside of the ring. Now I'm sure you might be aware of this if you're a long-term fan of the series, but what you might not know, especially if you're new to the series, is that this awesome feature can still be done in the current games. In order to do this, you need to run up the first ladder, which is leaning facing the ring, then press L1 on the PS4 or LB on the Xbox One just before reaching the second ladder, and if timed right you'll land and jump onto that second ladder. Now this can be awkward to get the timing right, but once you do get the timing down, this is really awesome for ladder matches and TLC matches, and it's definitely a great feature, yet likely forgotten feature that you can still do in 2K16. So first up, 2 weeks or so ago we had the 1.05 patch. An addition that came with that patch that you might not be aware of was some of the brand new entrance Minitrons. So as you can see, we now have Minitrons featuring the Hall of Fame, WCW and classic WWE. A small addition, but considering this is DLC which features a bunch of Hall of Famers and WCW superstars, this is pretty awesome. Sticking with the game's patches but going further back to the 1.04 patch, a feature that you probably know of because we featured it right here in this series was the new feature at the time to enable us to edit all alternative attire slots. Well, something related to that you might not be aware of was the added ability to edit Finn Balor's body paint. Now admittedly, this is not anything major currently given the amount of awesome glitch body paint Balors on the community creations, but say eventually 2K patch the glitch and the custom body paints are no longer available, then having the ability to edit Balor's paint, albeit on a much smaller limited scale, might come in handy for Finn Balor fans, so something to keep in mind. In terms of 6-man ladder matches and exhibition in 2K16, a limitation that some of you guys might be aware of is that you cannot put a championship on the line in these types of matches. Instead, you're forced to use the Money in the Bank briefcase above the ring. However, something that you might not know is that this is not the case in Universe mode, and these types of matches as championship matches can actually be done and are exclusive to Universe mode. So definitely good news and something cool for any of you guys wanting to do a 6-man ladder match or a championship, because whilst this is not doable in exhibition matches, this is doable in the 2K16 Universe mode. Our fourth thing on today's episode is that when doing a top rope diving finish up, if you hold the finisher button instead of pressing it, your superstar will actually stand up on the turnbuckle until you release the button before actually doing the finish up. Now I'm not really sure if there's any benefit to doing this, and I'm assuming there isn't, but still, if you want to make these high flying moves look a little more realistic, say for video purposes, or if you just like having realistic simulation type matches, this is something pretty cool that can be done, so again, keep this one in mind. And now we're actually going to finish off today's episode with something similar to what we featured in the last episode, which is some older moves in the series, which either you might have forgotten about, or if you're new to the series, you've potentially never seen before. Now we've got 3 moves, all when your opponent is in the hanging from the ladder position. So when you're in this situation, there is 3 moves not listed in the movesets that can be done. There is the power bomb, an electric chair drop, and my personal favourite of the bunch, the super spear. Again, these moves are not new, they've been in the series since SmackDown vs Raw 2011, but still these are also moves that can be done that you might have forgotten about or simply didn't know existed in the current set of games. Up first, something pretty cool for custom wrestlers, we have got the ability to pick your Voltrons in Create an Entrance. Now we don't know by default this is not possible, but using this quick and easy method, this is now doable. All you need to do for this is simply copy over the entrance from what superstar who has the Voltron you want to use. So let's say you have a Retro Undertaker as a custom wrestler for example, and you want to use the actual Undertaker's in-game official Voltron. All you need to do is copy over the actual Undertaker's entrance to your custom one. So nice and straightforward and pretty handy, and a nice way to use actual Voltrons for your custom superstars in 2K16. Moving on to the second thing in today's video, we have got some lesser known tag team winning animations. Now, most of you watching have likely seen the animations for the teams who are together in the game by default, but what you might not know is that other teams not together by default also have their own unique winning animations. So to name a few, there is the Shield, the Wyatt family, the Hollywood Blondes, and an alternative version of The Undertaker and Kane. Again, for these team-specific winning animations to work, the team needs to be together on the game as a proper team and will not work if they're just put together in a random match. So possibly common knowledge to some of you guys watching, but to others, not the case. So for some, this is something about 2K16 that you might not know. Up next, we have got something pretty cool for table matches. Now in fairness, I think some of you watching will likely be aware of this already, but still, for those that don't know, when playing a table match in 2K16, as well as winning the match via a normal table, the match can also be won using the announcer's table. As I say, something that some of you guys will already be aware of, but still, for those that don't, this is pretty cool, especially with the OMG table finishes in mind. It's also pretty handy to know for table matches in general, so the next time you're playing a table match, this is definitely something to keep in mind. The fourth thing in today's episode that you might not know about 2K16 is the ability to defend the tag team championships in 6-man tag team matches. Now, much like the 6-man ladder match for the championship that we saw in last week's episode, the ability to defend the tag team championships in 6-man tag team matches is only doable in this year's Universe mode. So if you ever wanted to do a 6-man tag team match for the tag team championships, this can now be done in 2K16 and is exclusive to this year's 2K16 Universe mode. Our fifth and final thing in today's video is something for Seth Rollins fans, because something in 2K16 that you might not be aware of is that when you have Seth Rollins as a manager in the game, he is announced as Mr. Money in the Bank Seth Rollins.
And approaching the ring, accompanied by Mr. Money in the Bank Seth Rollins.
So nothing major, but still kinda cool. Rollins doesn't have this intro for his normal entrance, just for when he's a manager. So unless you've had Rollins as a manager, which I think is probably unlikely for most people, this is something that you might not know. So yeah, kinda cool, kind of interesting, and that will finish off today's episode. So first up on today's episode, we have got the ability to defend single championships in handicap matches. So this follows suit of some of the previous things of the series in that this once again is exclusive to this year's Universe mode. Now in terms of who becomes the champion, if a challenger of the team side gets the pin, those superstars celebrate the championship after the match, although no matter who got the pinfall, the superstar that was selected first heading into the match gets the championship with the second superstar then becoming the #1 contender. As we've covered in the previous episode, the potentially forgotten move, the Super Spear, that was originally introduced way back in SVR 2011, is still in the current set of games. However, something I missed from that previous episode, and another thing that you might want to know about this year's game, is that since the game went new gen, this move can now be done from the second rope position. So I'm sure you would agree with me, although it's a little strange, but hey, kinda cool. So yeah, the Super Spear now being doable from the second row position is another thing that you might not know about WWE 2K16. Next up, we've got something superstar specific involving Bad News Barrett. Now, if you don't know, when Bad News Barrett does his charge finisher, during the wake up animation, he pulls down his black elbow pad, revealing a red one. But what you might not know is that if the bullhammer gets reversed, Barrett will continue the match with the red elbow pad exposed, as opposed to putting the black one back up if the move had connected. Now, this is not new for 2K16, but it's still something that you might not know and kinda cool for Bad News Barrett fans. Now, since the games went new gen with 2K15, one limitation that we now have is that aside from some of the dive and announce table OMG finishers, you can't actually lay a superstar on the table for a regular dive maneuver. However, whilst not officially possible, this is now doable via a glitch. So to do this, have a setup as seen in the video and push the superstar on the ladder onto the announcer's table. As you can now see, when the superstar gets to their feet, he is now on top of the announcer's table, so from here, do a running strike to knock that superstar back down onto his back, and with a bit of luck, he'll now be in position for what's coming next. Now just a heads up from my experience, the superstar on the table needs to be very slightly hanging off of it, basically so the game thinks the superstar is on the floor outside as opposed to actually on the announcer's table. Anyway, once you get the position correct, similar to as seen in the video, you can now climb the top rope and deliver what is going to be a pretty epic diving finisher, send your opponent crashing through the announcer's table. Using this method, this now makes regular diving finishers through announce tables now doable, which obviously creates some pretty epic and extreme moments. And the fifth and final thing of today's episode, we have got tired and fatigued finishers. Now, these were originally introduced last year with the new gen version of 2K15, and these remain in the game for 2K16. Now, if you don't know, tired finishers take place when you hit a finisher with low stamina, with a select bunch of moves having their own unique tired animation. As I say, these were added to the series last year, with 2K16 now adding some new animations into the mix. For example, this awesome looking fatigued codebreaker showcased by Chris Jericho. Now, no doubt about it, tired finishers were one of the best things added to the series when the series went new gen, and hopefully we will see even more of these awesome animations added to the series with 2K17 later this year. Okay, so kicking this one off, we have got some awesome moves and animations that look to be superstar specific. So we have got our Truth's Evade Split, which takes place when you reverse certain running clotheslines. And we've also got Ric Flair's Signature Low Blow, which takes place when you reverse certain bag grapples. Again, these moves look to be superstar exclusive to Ric Flair and R-Truth respectively, or at the very least are rare animations that you won't see in the game too often. The second thing in today's video, we have got ready-made alternative attires. So these ready-made attires and outfits can be accessed without the need for community creations by going to the template section of certain superstars in the Edit a Superstar mode. Now, only a certain bunch of superstars have these ready-made attires, including the likes of Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Xavier Woods, Triple H, and The Undertaker. Now, admittedly, not the most exciting thing to know, but still a more general thing that you might not know that might come in handy. Moving on from that, another thing about 2K16 that you might not be aware of is that to go along with these ready-made alternative attires, there is also alternative and lesser known entrances. So these again include the likes of Reigns, Ambrose and Rollins with their Shield entrances, plus some other lesser known entrances, including Mike Tyson's entrance from WWE 13, Stone Cold's ATV entrance, and even John Cena has a pretty cool secondary champion entrance. So some pretty cool alternative entrances that you might not be aware of that do exist in the game and are available in the create an entrance section. Our fourth thing this week, the reverse apron suplex. Now this move is not a secret move as such, but it is a move that is not found in the movesets, and a move that is likely overlooked and not necessarily known to everyone. Now this move is not a new move for 2K16, and has been in the series now for quite a few years, but it is a move that, given the right situation, can be a very useful move to know. So the reverse apron suplex happens when you do a grapple from the apron position with your opponent in the ring with their back turned. Now this situation won't necessarily happen that often in regular one-on-one matches, but it can definitely be a useful and handy thing to know for triple threats, fatal four-ways, tag teams, and pretty much any multi-man match type. For example, if you're in a match with multiple superstars and a table gets involved, the reverse apron suplex serves as a pretty awesome move that can be utilised to put your opponent through a table. And kind of sticking with tables, lastly on today's episode, we have got the glitched unbreakable table. Now this one is purely for fun and can simply be done by setting up a table in the position as seen in the video. So as I say, this one purely for fun and can be used to do moves on or around the table without actually breaking it. So if you do enjoy messing around in the game and having fun with stuff like this is pretty cool to know. And the glitched unbreakable table is yet another thing that you might not know that does exist in 2K16. Kicking this one off, we have got some lesser known tag team controls. Now we've actually got two things here. The first is the ability to call your partner into the ring for either an attack or a distraction. Now this is done by holding R1 on the PS4 or equivalent on the Xbox One, then pressing either up or down on the D-pad. By doing this, your tag team partner will either get in the ring or attempt to get into the ring, either way distracting the referee, which can definitely be a useful thing to know, especially let's say if you want to use the steel chair on your opponent without causing a DQ finish. The other tag team control, which is a little more known but still something that some of you guys might not be aware of, is the tag partner switch. Now this one is done with the old school select button, which is the left side of the touchpad on the PS4 or the equivalent on the Xbox One. This allows you to switch tag team partners on the fly. Again, a really handy thing to note for tag team matches, especially handy for breaking up pins or to stop an attempted pin breakup from the opposing team. Next up on today's episode, something that you might not know about custom arenas. Now, if you're not aware, via one of the recent patches for 2K16, 2K brought in a feature that allows you to choose whether you see Minitrons or stage arena logos on select custom arenas. So let's take this custom arena for example. If you want to see the nicely made custom arena logos, you select option A, or if you'd rather see the standard Minitrons, you would select option B. Now this was actually a pretty cool feature that 2K brought into this year's game, and definitely another handy thing to know. So for those of you who at times wanted to see the arena logos instead of the Minitrons or vice versa, now you know how to. And this can also be changed whenever you like, including for downloaded arenas in the edit arena section. Moving on, the third thing of today's episode is Santino's Cobra Sleeve. Now, I'm sure most of you watching will be aware that Santino puts the Cobra Sleeve on during his finisher, but what you might not know is that if his finisher animation gets interrupted, Santino will continue the match with the Cobra Sleeve still visible, as opposed to taking it back off if the finisher had connected. So nothing too major there, but still a nice touch for Santino in the game that he potentially might not have known. Our fourth thing this week, we have got a lesser known tired finisher. Now I think it's fair to say that everyone, myself included, loves a good tired finisher, with one of the most obvious and favourite animations being HBK's corner sweet chin music. Now because that version of the move is so awesome, I think it's fair to say that most people tend to use that version instead of the regular standard version. But what you might not know is that as a new addition for 2K16, the awesome tied animation for the corner sweet chin music is now also found in the regular standard version. Now you obviously don't get the corner theatrics, but you do get the rest of the tied animation, which, whilst not quite as good as the corner version, still looks pretty good and is a cool thing to know. So yeah, the standing sweet chin music in 2K16 also has a fatigue variation. And the final thing of today's episode, we have got Irish Whip effectiveness when used on the outside of the ring. Now I get this one doesn't sound too exciting, but when used in such ways, a simple Irish Whip can actually be a pretty cool and effective thing to utilise. So as well as the standard Irish Whip into the barricade, the ring post, or even the steel steps, there is also another bunch of ways to use this for damage that you may not have considered trying out. You could strong Irish whip your opponent into the ring apron, so yeah, even the ring apron can be used for damage. You can whip your opponent into the corner point of the announcer's table, which as you can see looks pretty brutal. You can also strong Irish whip your opponent into the barricade at different angles, which has a few different nice results. And via a glitch, believe it or not, you can also Irish whip your opponent into the crowd in the position as seen in the video. So for such a simple move, various pretty cool things can be done, and some of which hopefully you might not have known that you should definitely consider giving a go. Kicking this one off, we have got the Hamlock DDT through the announcer's table. Now this move came to the game as DLC via the Hall of Fame Showcase pack, and the cool thing about this move that separates it somewhat from the other announce table finishers is that as far as I know, this is the only announce table finisher in the game that doesn't actually break the announcer's table. Now this would appear to be a glitch, but I think the fact that it doesn't break the announce table is actually pretty unique and pretty cool. And also somewhat realistic, as like we see in actual WWE, the announce table doesn't necessarily break every single time a move is done on one. Next up, we have got some overlooked in-game options. Now there is actually a couple of things to cover here. First up, we have got the Iron Man match length option, which as you can see has a few different time options. And then there is the gameplay tweaks as seen here that you also might not have known existed. Now if you're not a fan of the more newer, more realistic gameplay, there are some tweaks here that whilst won't completely change the gameplay, will change it somewhat to make it feel a little bit like it used to be in the older games of the series. Now these options include the ability to turn off the chain grappling, the fatigue, the weight detection, and the reversal limits. Now for the most part this series is focused on positive things in the game, however at number 3 today we have got a negative thing, because another thing that you might not know about 2K16, unless you've read the online manual, which I'm guessing most of you probably haven't, the online services for 2K16 will end on the 31st of May 2017. So not the most exciting thing to cover, but still something to keep in mind for the future that you might not have known about the current game of the series. Back to the more positive things, our fourth thing on today's list, we have got finishers into finishers. Now, finishers into finishers is a thing that a lot of us have requested in recent years to be added to the series, and whilst technically these don't exist for the most part, there is actually some of these in the game as reversals. So the most obvious one, which I'm sure most of you guys are aware of, is the curb stop into the RKO. But there is also two variations of the Tombstone Pole Driver. There is this one from recent years, and then this one, which is brand new to 2K16. And then there is my personal favourite of the bunch, the choke slam into the choke slam. I'm sure you guys would agree with me, some truly awesome stuff. And hopefully we will see this expanded with more finishers into finishers for 2K17 and future games in the series. And finally, our fifth and final thing on today's episode, we have got the broken LED board via the ring-breaking OMG Superplex. Now this one is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, if you didn't know, when doing the super heavyweight OMG ring-breaking suplex in a ring that features an LCD board, something that you might not know and something that you might not have noticed is that when doing this, if you look carefully, you can actually see it break off and fall from the ring, which in my opinion is an awesome touch, which was newly added this year for 2K16. Now obviously this is a visual thing and nothing really more than that, but still this is a thing that I'm sure not everyone has noticed before, and a pretty cool thing that I did want to cover before the series ended. So yeah, the broken LED board during the ring breaking OMG Superplex is a thing in this year's game. And that thing will conclude today's episode of 5 things that you might not know about WWE 2K16.